yourself on mute throughout the presentation unless you have a question. And if you do have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask that way, or write a question in the chat box. Myself and the rest of the team will be monitoring the chat, and we can ask on your behalf. And if anyone has a question that they'd like to ask anonymously, they could send a chat to me and I can ask it without using your name. And then finally, so the content and discussion of this session and the symposium as a whole will necessarily engage with issues of human trafficking, which can include things like sexual and physical abuse. Some of the content will be emotionally and intellectually challenging to engage with. Myself, the other moderators, all of our presenters, and anyone who's speaking will all try and do our best to make this virtual meeting a space where we can engage bravely, empathetically, and thoughtfully with difficult content throughout the session and the symposium. And then the last thing before we kind of get started introducing is, so as an icebreaker, if you think that you might be the person living farthest away from where we are, we just put your location in the chat box. So we're located in Richmond, Virginia, and so far the furthest away we've had is Romania. But we've had people from all over, several different states in the U.S. as far as Arizona, California, and everywhere in between. So just to kind of get a little know more about who's in our audience. And with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers for this session. This last session for today is the intersection of film and human trafficking prevention. Our speakers today are Heather Waters, Tanya Gould, and Christina Zorich. So first with Heather Waters, so she began her career in the performing arts arena as a commercial and film actress and singing lead and backup vocals. In 2000, she shifted behind the camera to co-produce and direct Match Point Atlanta, and has since gone on to produce and direct several film projects. In 2008, she joined forces with Marlene Neubauer to become co-founder of Creative World Awards, which provides writers with story and craft development, which has gone on to become a go-to source for industry veterans seeking new material for the silver screen. Heather founded the Richmond International Film Festival in 2011, which has become one of the largest international competitive film and music festivals in the Mid-Atlantic. She's also president and executive director of the RIFF Arts Institute, which focuses on the development of artists, including filmmakers, musicians, and writers. Through RIFF and her work as past president of the Virginia Production Alliance, Heather has placed a strong focus on growing indie film in the state and fostering talent and strategic partnerships in the production community. Some recent films she has produced or directed personally include Trading Ages, Stillwater Lake, and By the Grace of Bob. Heather will share how she is raising public awareness about human trafficking through her film festival. So thank you, Heather, for being here with us.
Thank you.
And
so good to be with you guys.
Absolutely. Our next guest is Tanya Gould, who I think is on her way, but she's with us. So I'd still like to introduce her. So Tanya Gould is a survivor of domestic sex trafficking, child pornography, sexual abuse as a minor, and controlling relationships, and is the founder of Identifiable Me, a nonprofit whose purpose is to move those who have been victimized by sexual violence towards self-discovery and their life's purpose. Years after being forced to drop out of college by her trafficker, she went back to college and earned her BA in communications in 2015. Now Tanya serves as a mentor, consultant, advisor, trainer, and speaker on topics relating to her story. Tanya has featured in over 20 interviews and has trained or given trafficking awareness presentations for over 150 organizations in a 6-year time span. She currently serves on several advisory boards, including the CSEC of the Children's Hospital of the Kings and Daughters, Beloved Haven, and Street Ransom. She's recently been appointed to the U.S. Human Trafficking Advisory Council and is a policy champion for the National Survivor Network. She is a consultant at Global Centurion, CHKD, and Virginia Beach Justice Initiative, and the task force implemented by the Attorney Generals in the Hampton Roads region of Virginia. She is also chairperson for the Museum of Fine Arts Commission in the city of Portsmouth. Tanya served as a survivor consultant and producer for the film GROOMED, and we're excited to hear more from her. So thank you, Tanya, for being here with us. And then their third speaker for today is Christina Zorich. Christina was born in New York City into a family of artists. Her parents, actors Olympia Dukakis and Louis Zorich, were early members of the Williamstown Theater Festival and founding members of the Whole Theater Company in Montclair, New Jersey, two artist communities that deeply shaped and informed her development. Her first time on stage was their charter production at the Whole Theater in Thornton Wilder's Pulitzer-winning play, Our Town, playing George's younger sister, Rebecca Gibbs. She cites this as she quotes, the experience that birthed that moment of destiny many speak of, where you just know you're called to something. For me, I was up on that ladder in the first act with George, reciting Wilder's gorgeous dialogue, contemplating the mind of God. She sees acting as her first love, and that this love of acting and stage developed throughout the years into a passion for photography, teaching, acting, directing, producing, and filmmaking. Christina served as the director of the film The New Abolitionists, and we're excited to hear more about that from her as well. So thank you to all three of you for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you guys so much. Hang with me 1 second. I'm trying to get my screen to show up the way that I want it to. I'll just start, and Carrie, I'm going to lean on you to hopefully, when the time comes that I need to actually play video, that you'll help me out there. You guys, it's so wonderful to be with you. Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Carrie. Thank all of you and the team at the VCU School of Medicine for putting on this very important symposium. I can say for myself, it's a great honor. When Faye came to me, I think she knows the background of myself and what we do at the Richmond International Film Festival. Each year, we choose special spotlights to really put those documentary films that we feel are, and narratives, you know, both aspects that we feel are doing groundbreaking things, not just in cinema, but also in our communities, including raising awareness on important topics such as human trafficking. And so it's a great honor. Thank you, Faye, you know, for inviting Christina and Tanya and myself to share this experience. And thank all of you guys out there for tuning in. What we're going to do is just talk a little bit about how film really is an additional channel that we can use to create greater awareness, not only among colleagues. And, you know, at RIF, for example, we have many films and a human trafficking spotlight, and we'll bring in great, incredible panelists that are leaders in the community on the ground, making a huge difference in combating human trafficking and several other issues. But what we also love to do as a festival is to invite the public in, folks that may not have any exposure whatsoever about any given topic, and they can see a very compelling film that touches their heart. We create panelists and meaningful discussion around that, which we hope ultimately leads to each of us trying to find a way to do our own part, you know, as a citizen in the community and across the board, you know, our profession and however that we can. So we're going to be touching on that a little bit today in terms of film. We also, I'll speak for myself, over the years, I started RIF 10 years ago, and through the years have seen, because of these incredible filmmakers like Christina and Tanya and many others, devote and dedicate an incredible amount of time to shooting these projects that shed light on these incredible subjects. We've seen people that are victims also be compelled and moved and get the resources that they need, and oftentimes an unlikely but safe place. And you wouldn't think that film has normally that capability, but it's a powerful medium. And so we're thrilled to be here with you guys today, and we're going to touch on a little bit of all of that. So we're just going to jump right in. And what I would love to do, thank you. Is it Gurhas? I probably am not pronouncing that right.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you for the beautiful introductions. Thank you. So what we would like to do is just dive right into the trailers of these two films that we're focusing on today. One is Christina Zorich's film, The New Abolitionist, and she is a director and producer on the film. This has been, I think she put it very well, more than a passion project for her. I think, for many years she was swept in and did not anticipate getting so engaged in this topic. But once she got in, it's pretty much taken over her life in many ways. So we're going to talk to Christina in a few minutes and also view her trailer. And then Tanya, who has been on all sides of human trafficking. We were fortunate to have her film a couple of years ago at the film festival. GROOMED is a narrative short that she was involved with that takes a different spin. But I think through both of these films, when we look at them, we're going to see a little bit of overlap between them. And then we're going to dig in and try and come at this from a lot of different angles, including recovery, including how we can coordinate better, not just in the arts, but with officials and NGOs and universities and citizens across all communities. Ultimately, to create that dialogue and a call to action so that we're compelled and working better together to make a dent in this most important issue that is really an atrocity, not just here in Virginia, but around the world. So what I would like to do is, and Christina and Tanya, thank you so much for being with us at the symposium. It means the world. So what I'd like to do is first show Christina's trailer. And if I can get out of this screen, I've got it on mine. So am I, Carrie?
Mm-hmm. Can you share screen, Heather?
Just did, let's see. Can you see that?
We're seeing your screen, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So this is The New Abolitionist, which is Christina's film. And she basically went out and investigated in Thailand and Cambodia and most Asian countries. But I think once you view the film, you'll see that, and also Tanya's, there's some overlap. So let's watch The New Abolitionist trailer.
Heather, we're not able to hear it. Can you turn it up from your end?
Is that better?
call forth their identity, who they really are, and we see the beauty in them.
ទោះគេធ្វើអ្វីមកយើងក៏យើងទ្រាំអត់ធ្មត់នឹងគេយើងចេះរក្សាដូចថារក្សាចិត្តខ្លួនឯងចឹងកុំឲ្យទៅគេរករឿងគេចឹង
Heather, would you mind playing it again, just since we lost the beginning?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Sex slavery conjures up images in our mind of people locked up, chained to beds. There's a lot of other ways people can be in bondage.
You see a lot of this. How do you process it emotionally?
It's horrible. I don't know that you ever get used to it. I don't know that you ever get to the point where you don't just weep inside over the atrocity.
We want to bring hope and healing to the women that are in the sex industry.
The ways that we can overcome trauma is to talk about it.
We call forth their identity, who they really are, and we see the beauty in them.
ទោះគេធ្វើអ្វីមកយើងក៏យើងទ្រាំអត់ធ្មត់នឹងគេយើងចេះរក្សាដូចថារក្សាចិត្តខ្លួនឯងចឹងកុំឲ្យទៅគេរករឿងគេចឹង
Wonderful. So very powerful film, and that only scratches the surface, as Christina will talk about later. And we'll also watch a clip later on as well. Before we do that,
Did we lose you?
Carrie?
Yep, are you still there, Heather?
Yeah. I don't know if this is trying to bear with us, everyone. I'm not quite sure what that is. Do y'all hear that? Okay. All right, hold on 1 second, guys. Okay. All right, you guys. So let's also, I'm going to share the screen again. Can you guys see me? This is the trailer coming up for Tanya's film that she is a producer on, and it's a narrative short called GROOMED.
I'm only human.
Do you really think he wants you? 16 ka pa lang.
But when you
He
look
loves
at
me.
think we're not the same.
Hey.
My nature's ruined, and there's no one to
I'm here to make sure that you get
'cause
your quota tonight and you don't get out of pocket.
Oh, I pray, but I'm weary. I need freedom. I hear weary. Let me be.
I took you in. How about bought you all these nice clothes, nice things. What, you think that's free? Baby, you're part of my stable now.
Free.
Great. Did that show everyone? Okay, wonderful. So, two really powerful films, you guys, coming at this subject from different ways. One, a feature documentary, and the other, a narrative short. Both incredibly effective. And this is what I love about film. We have a platform to reveal these subjects in all kinds of different ways and execute them differently, but they're all incredibly impactful. So I would like to go to Tanya and Christina and dig into some questions. First, and either of you can start with this. What specifically inspired you both to make these films at the time you did? There's a lot that goes into film, as we all know, and you have to be passionate. It takes an army. So what was it that inspired you all?
Well, I can start, unless Tanya wants to start.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. There you are.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Great meeting you as well.
So my story, I will try to give the Cliff Notes version because inspiration is kind of making, as everybody knows who's produced anything, when you self-produce, which is what I did, it requires a huge commitment. I put all my money into it and eventually like some of my mother's money into it because she helped me finish it. But I met an anti-trafficker at a party in Hollywood, at a Hollywood party in 2012. And she had been a nurse working in the hospital system in California, told me women and children were coming in who had been trafficked and there was no system to heal them, to rehabilitate them. And she decided she wanted to make a career change and started an NGO called Unlikely Heroes and was building homes to put rescued children and women in to rehabilitate them, and wanted to do it all over the globe and was starting to do it all over the globe and needed money to finance. And I knew immediately she needed fundraising materials like visual, and we're in Hollywood. So I thought, well, I'll throw her every director and cameraman I know. So I set up a bunch of meetings. They all met with them. And I said, listen, this is a Christian NGO. It's a ministry. It's an active service. You can't charge for your services. And they were like, yes, yes. But by the end of it, they had all asked for money. So I had Erica come to me and she goes, listen, they were all great people. I can tell they're talented. She'd seen their reels and all, but she said, all the money has to go to the girls, Christine. And I said, of course, of course. And I was, besides being angry at my friends, I was like, oh gosh, and I had at that moment had the idea of a documentary, and I was ashamed of myself because it was 2012. I'd never heard of human sex trafficking at all. My friend Nancy works at HBO Docs, and later on I said, had you heard of it? She goes, yes. I mean, she's at the top of the pinnacle of documentary filmmaking. So, but for me, it was all new, and I thought I was some sophisticated, world-weary person in the, I'd seen so much, but. So then a few years passed and a lot of money, I basically sold a piece of property in New York and I had money, which was the first time. And I had had that much money in my hands ever as an actress. I was teaching acting at that time pretty heavily. So that's when I spent a year praying, meditating, thinking about what am I going to do with the film? I had another project I was going to direct and produce in New York. And then I just felt like a lot of my Christian friends and I were praying about it. Because yes, I'm in the arts, but I'm also, a Christian. And I was really trying to think about, as you get older, you think about when you put your energy and time behind something, you want it to be something that means something deeply to you. And so I ended up moving into this subject matter. And then God opened doors. I started meeting different people who were anti-traffickers like Erica. And I went on a missions trip with Extreme Love Ministries, the second group that we feature in the film. And basically that was in 2015. And that was like mind blowing. I was shooting alone, very, very little crew. I just had a producer. And I came back and I realized I didn't have the movie. So then I had another year of currying favor, trying to find new NGOs that were doing this work that I could reach out to. And finally we found the groups that would open their doors to us. And I went back in 2016 and shot in the course. We were there a month and a half in Thailand and Cambodia. So when people say to me, why Thailand and Cambodia, I say, because that's where my contacts and connections and opportunities, they came to me, if that makes any sense. And I also found out subsequently that it's considered the most trafficked region in the globe for reasons I then discovered in the film, and which helped actually explain to me, because this was not just a journey for an audience. This was a journey for me to go, how is this possible? How is this level of trauma? How is this level of just systemized abuse? How is this happening in the 2000s? And so I wanted to get to the bottom of it myself. So yeah, that's my story.
The bravery, and this is why I love documentary filmmakers, because it is literally a call to action that your heart has to be in it. A lot of people put their own finances in it. I'm a big believer personally where, in the industry, they say never self-finance. I'm like, oh, bunk, whatever. If you believe, I'll get some lashback for that. So incredible, Christina.
Perfect example. Everyone always said to me, don't drive across country as a woman, it's dangerous, right? So I kept waiting for the right man and the right relationship. And then finally, we have GPSs now. I can travel cross country as a woman alone and feel safe. And it's a very liberating feeling to not be waiting for something else to make something happen in your life,
Yeah.
For the protection or the financing. And I know people said that to me and I was like, well, then I have to spend this amount of time getting I like not having to answer to somebody. I like being able to be the person on the top that says, okay, we can use this or not, because I'm the one with the money, I like that feeling.
It's incredible. And Tanya, your story was a little bit different, right? So tell us how you got involved with yours, the film GROOMED.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess about 5 years ago, I had done a documentary like interview with Cox 11 and shared my story on there. And Angelo Reyes, who you see is the director of the film, he reached out to me and he asked me if I wanted to do like a film on human trafficking. And at that time, I still was really careful with how human trafficking was going to be portrayed. And I didn't want to like make a movie out of it. Right. So, and I was very protective of it. And he said to me, well, this is my thought. He said, how Hallmark or Lifetime, like they did all this great stuff with domestic violence and created these stories so that people could actually understand on an emotional level. He said, that's what I want to do with human trafficking. And I was like, no, this is too vulnerable. I'm doing, oh God, how could you do that? And then, so I said no. About 2 years later, he came back to me and I was like, yes, people aren't getting it, because I was doing all of this, a lot of training and awareness, and people were still like, it's not happening in my area. And I just felt like the movement needed an extra push, right? And needed to go to another level. And so I said yes. And man, it was an amazing ride, walking through some details of my own story. I work with kids right now. I mentor. And so, just using this platform to be a voice, not just for myself, but, for the community that I work with, it's just amazing, just takes that voice, the survivor voice, to another level. And so the goal really was to just kind of, show, what I do in a lot of my talks when I'm doing awareness trainings or just teaching or just bringing this issue out. or working on a policy. I want people to understand that we're all human and we all have basic needs. All of us, right? Our blood is red, and we all breathe oxygen and have to eat. And there's a lot of this commonality, and especially just wanting to feel a sense of belonging. And that's my story, not just my story, but many of the kids and adults that I have worked with. We just want to love and be loved. It's that simple. To me, that is a vulnerability. And a lot of us, I did anything for love. I did anything for that. That meant the most to me. And I want people, just humans, to remember that. So your story is not much different than mine, because there are things that everyone decides to do or not do for the sake of something else. And so I wanted to change a mindset on that. I wanted people to really see the mindset or the thought of that type of vulnerability, and just walk through that for a second and relate to it for a second. So that we can have a real paradigm shift. So it's not a us versus them or you versus us, but that it's a we. This is a humanity issue, that we're dealing with. So that's where I was during the whole film process, which was new for me. I had never done anything like that, but besides things in high school, right? Or in my own mind. But, actually taking part and like, oh my God, like really talking to the bottom in the movie, like telling her how to be and um it was so much healing for me. And I didn't know it would take me to that place again, and it walked me through some more healing. I was able to identify myself with the main character, as you'll see, the one who's being groomed and trafficked, and here she's groomed by society, right? Or by her vulnerabilities, and just really giving space for that, and just how easy it is to hand our kids off, or our off to traffickers. And that was the goal of the film. And of course we hope we did that.
Yes.
And so it's very emotionally triggering, but we wanted it to be, because a lot of times when I do my talks as a survivor, people are like, oh my God, how was it out there? And inside I'm like, how do you think it was out there?
Yeah.
But it's like if they keep asking, all right, okay, let's move further in the movement. Let's answer your question and let's really put it out there. Okay, so that's answered, and let's move on and let's come up with solutions. And so so that was my motivation. And I really, my hope is that people walk away after watching the film thinking differently about what it means to be vulnerable, and the thought process of the person being trafficked.
So before we move into, kind of dig a little deeper, I'm going to go off script a little bit, girls, and ask you just one more technical question. Tanya, listening to that, I'm curious how much you collaborated in terms of, because everybody, this is a narrative versus Christina's is a documentary. So a little bit different process when you're making these kinds of films. Christina, I imagine, you had your in going through the organizations. They then gave, introduced you to the subjects, but I'd love to hear more from you on that. Tanya, did you collaborate with Angelo on the script, or did you come in later? What did that process look like?
Yeah, Angelo, I mean, talking about really getting the survivor's voice from inception, or I'm sorry, from conception all the way, throughout the process to implementation. He did a great job with being open and transparent about that. And that was hard for me, because a lot of organizations and a lot of people aren't that open to that, because they want all the accolades, right? He wasn't like that. He really wanted to know from the beginning, is this right? And what happens here, and I'm like, no, that's not quite it, so through the writing, we had a lot to change. He allowed me to be a part of the process when it came to choosing characters, location,
Wow,
everything.
that's great.
Everything you see in that film has my touch in it, my voice. And I'm thinking not just as myself, but because this is the work that I do, I'm thinking of so many voices, that I get, just as a peer counselor or as a mentor, hearing the stories and really like putting all of that. And I loved working with the actors and actresses, and they were just, it was just an amazing process for all of us. All of us went through something because it's so traumatizing. And to think that, even talking to some of the actresses, it was hard. It was very challenging for them to play a part of, of the bottom, the one who played the person being victimized. It was really challenging for them because I had to push them to say, no, that's not it. We need to go deeper. And so
Wow.
every part of the process we really had to work through, and it truly had its challenging moments. We had to stop, take a break. It was all of that because it was just so hard. But we did it. I can't tell you. Yeah, I wish Angelo could tell you, because he would tell you, like, as a person who's done this over and over and over again, like, oh my God, we didn't anticipate these type of challenges.
It sounds like he is an incredible person to work with. That's like the dream collaborator right there, where we can all thrive on set. And I'm sure for even the actors, because in that situation they have to be cast, whereas Christina's situation, she's, I think, more so dealing with NGOs and, organizations, which is a whole other level of sensitivity, because you've got to, go and not just find the victims, but make sure they're okay with it and go through a different process. Christina, what was that like for you guys?
Well, I mean, the private experience that I went through for my own part of the journey was tumultuous. Sounds like it was like on set for everybody. We would have weeks where it was just ruthless while I was researching it. I'd see this movie or read this book, and just, it would mess me up for a week, and I'd have to recoup, or I'd get into a rage, or I'd be depressed or just cry. I mean, literally, it was like an emotional roller coaster. But the process of, yes, you said it exactly right. You don't want to exploit them. You're trying to, the main purpose, objective, super objective of the film is to educate myself and the public at large about what really is the problem, and try to hit pay dirt there on a few levels, and create clarity, and then a call to action for everyone, so it doesn't feel like there's hope, and we're looking at it like something that can be solved, and not being allowing the difficulty of it to kind of destroy your problem solving and your strength and your ability to work through it. But the biggest issue really was, you can't register with the government. You have to. I was working with Darren Wilson, who's a filmmaker, and I asked him, and he said some of his films he didn't. And my producer was kind of shocked. I said, we're not going to get the footage we want if we register and we have a babysitter from the government come with us. We're just not. So we got 600 hours of footage. Each different NGO, when we went, we'd have a point person. We'd have spent a year working through, coming up with a schedule and what we would shoot, and going back and forth. But when we got there, they would, like the first group, within 3 days, the lead guy did not want to be on camera. He got scared. He said, every night we go out, it's life threatening. We could be killed. We work the government. The government is involved with these groups and allowing it to happen because it's bringing revenue into the country. And yet we're working with them. So we have to maintain that relationship. So it's just the level of intensity in the work and the danger, and everybody who does this anti-trafficking work is like kind of like gangster. They all are. They've given up everything. They've moved their families to these countries. You know, they're living very modest lifestyles. So it's like they're heroes. I thought of all of them as heroes to me. I was moved and rocked and educated by all of them. I loved working with all of them, but they were in danger. So you want to be respectful. And, you know, as having worked in the entertainment industry, I'll tell you one lesson I got. It is not that hard to take care of people. It really isn't. Like, we decided to geo-block the movie in Southeast Asia. So what? You know, if people in Southeast Asia see it, the people involved in the film will get in trouble. It's that simple. I mean, it's the concerns on all of the hearts of these anti-trafficking groups after we made the movie. Even though they loved the film when they saw it, they were like, Christina, please, you know. So that region is not democratically free in the way we experience democracy here. They don't have those freedoms. They don't have those protections, no matter how much they're fighting for it now. So, you know, I have the ability to have a voice for them, you know, and be able to say the things for them that they really can't speak for themselves. But yeah, you do have to go the extra mile to make people feel safe, to make people feel honored, you know, to stay on topic and not make the movie something about something that it's not. You know, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I don't know if does that answer the question? Kind of. Oh, I can't hear you.
It does, although you gave me about 20 more new questions. Which
basically describe my personality right there.
Yeah. So I'll have to bring at least a couple of those up later. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what you're touching on, Christina, partially there is with almost any documentary film for everybody joining us, sometimes it's not a scripted thing. There's all different forms of documentary. So you can get in, you do your research, you have your treatment. A lot of people approach it in different ways, but once you get in and start shooting, you can have a situation like Christina did. Oh, I don't want to be on film. And then boom, you've got to like figure out how to pivot like right then and there. And then your story will have an ebb and flow. And sometimes in documentaries, you don't even know the real story until after you
exactly.
Yes.
We actually, because it was in a foreign country, we had an interpreter in half of the interviews. So I didn't even know what the answers were till I came back. I would have a sense of it so I could ask the next question. Then we would come back and go, oh my gosh, she said this on camera. She said that on camera. We got that. Like, even when we were talking to the kids that are, you know, it's labor trafficking, the young children that are taken up into gangs and used to beg on the streets. It's labor trafficking rings. I didn't know what they were saying to us. We didn't know barely what they were saying. So we got a lot of stuff we didn't even realize we got till we were in the editing room.
Mm-hmm.
So the story changes. You think you go in with a story with documentaries, then you're shooting it and you're getting another story following that. And then you come back and you get, and it's another story. So basically 3 stories.
That's exactly a question that I have.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Is the ethical ramifications of starting upon a story without quite knowing what you might stumble upon, and then like what you legally can do with that information?
Well, I mean, the whole thing is illegal. I mean, all of it's illegal. What they're doing is illegal, these traffickers.
Well, no, I get that, but I just but like the idea of a documentarian, like
right
when you
well,
start on a
you
story.
have to. I mean, listen. I've seen some. First of all, it's interesting you're saying this because legally things have changed. Everybody who ended up being in the movie, who wasn't pixelated, because I had to pixelate a lot of people, we made sure that they knew what they were doing and why they were doing it. We didn't want anyone in danger. We didn't want anyone taking risks that they couldn't live with. We were asked and invited into, you know, everything. I had to send the footage back to the NGO and have everybody double approve. So yes, it's a constant, you know, there's people in the entertainment industry are very exploitive. And I really didn't want that. It's happened to me where I feel like I'm, as in, you know, in fictional stuff where I feel like you're kind of used and set aside after. And I just felt like I really wanted people, I think also the idea that they knew that they had to give a voice to this issue and how imperative it is. All the NGOs said, we've had 10 years of education, now action. It's time to move into the action phase of dealing with this problem on so many different levels. And I'm not saying there aren't, you know, activists, just like Tanya herself, who are engaged daily in you know, preventing this, and all the there's other different levels of attacking it. But I do think that there is a risk for anyone involved stepping forward, and they have to know that they're doing it for the purpose of ending this, of ending trafficking.
So Courtney, I'll piggyback on that. So normally, you know, just like you would do in a narrative project, whether it's a short or feature, any kind of film project, you do the same thing in a documentary film, where you do have to go through a process to have the subject, the actor, the victim, whoever it is, sign off on release forms. What Christina, I think, is also saying is she had the benefit, because she had these connections and worked very closely with 3 or 4 NGOs on the ground who were already working with these subjects and these victims, not subjects, but victims in her case, right, with this particular documentary. So that sensitivity level had a few other channels that safeguards. So hopefully that, you know, because you have these other NGOs sort of helping to make sure, and there's a language barrier too, right?
Right.
So in those situations.
You also have to sign a media agreement, and the media agreement, you can't show the actual locations of where they are. The women who are, you know, if it was a long process to get the people to be on camera. There's an interesting, you know, some people decided to be, as you can see in the film, pixelated. There was some of the locations, the names got changed. Some of the names in the films aren't really those people's names. There's a movie that just came out called Welcome to Chechnya, about the cleansing of the gay community in Chechnya, Russia. My friend Nancy is a producer on it. I think it's going to win an Oscar. It's incredible. But they go underground, and what they've come up with, which is really revolutionary, is a way of having face actors. So they hired face actors and put, you know, because you can do resurfacing with face work, to protect the people that they're getting out of Russia through their journey, you know, into safety. And even the people, the activists, I think exactly. But so it's a way to tell the story, because the minute you pixelate, the audience feels distant from the subject matter. You feel like,
no, I'm familiar with the, you know, that kind of anonymity and that kind of thing. It's very fascinating to me with regards to like a documentary, which it's just, and how it occurs and how it's deployed and figured out is really interesting.
Well, yeah, there's lots of different ways, but protecting the victims, and this is a great segue to go into our next question. And Tanya, hopefully you're still there. I'm going to ask both of you this, but, you know, in both of these films, oftentimes it is the victim's own parents or grandparents or siblings or people that they trust the most in their life that give them, you know, introduce them to or trafficking. And it could be even selling them, you know, even in Christina, in your case, it's touched on a little bit in your film. I mean, there are, you know, young women who are pregnant and selling their, you know, babies before they're even born in order to survive. So can you each talk about how significant of a problem it is? And for Tanya's film, I love the name of it, GROOMED. And Christina, you and I talked about that connection with how you know, felt like the grooming aspect. And Tanya, you know, I know this is, you know, a very passionate part of what you do. Tanya, how significant, and can you give us all a little bit better understanding of how easily it is and pervasive it is for someone, whether it's in Virginia or Cambodia, to be caught up in a situation, to be groomed, and the next thing they know, they are, a trafficking victim?
Yes. So definitely, when we look at the grooming process, the reason why we called it groom was because I always say that, my story and a lot of other stories, the trafficker, by the time the trafficker comes in your life, it's like a perfect storm, right? Where, there's been all kinds of vulnerability. So, a lot of us, like you would think, oh, if they, had a broken home, where it wasn't a 2-parent home, or, just say that, I know specifically, like now what comes to mind more recently are a lot of kids are caregivers in their own home. The parents are absent for many different reasons, whether they're working or they're deceased or they're on drugs or all kinds of stuff. But you find kids there, so there's no oversight. There's no parental oversight in the home. A lot of things where and because because of the internet, right? Parents, and I've said this before, when I was raising my kids, right, I could think about how I was raised, whether I want to do that or not do that, but I still had some type of foundation or grid for, okay, yeah, you guys can go outside and only go to the neighbor's house, right? Because I know them, whereas today kids don't even know who their neighbors are because they're on the internet. Their friends are like in another country, right? So it's very different. Parents have to parent creatively now and have to be more involved. So, but even, and that's a huge vulnerability. The age that we're in today is a vulnerability. So anywhere there's a disconnect, right? There's a disconnect. So, when I look at my situation and other kids, because parents are working or absent from the home, there's this constant need for, especially kids, they just want to have this connection and sense of belongingness and validation and, all the things that you have as a normal kid, as a normal kid or human being growing up in society. When you take that connection away, in many different ways, that connection is removed. Here comes a trafficker, right? So and the trafficker is able, because this is their job, this is what they do all day, is find a way to make that connection, make kids feel validated, make them feel a sense of belonging, whether their need is financial or they're meeting a basic need, or they just want the need to be loved. Traffickers understand that, and they're able to come in and meet that need short term, right? And so, and all of that it happened to me. That was my story. I wanted to be all the things that I said. I wanted to feel a sense of connection. I was sexually abused as a child, and it wasn't dealt with appropriately. I talk often about parents with unchecked trauma, and so your kids, when you have unchecked trauma, as your kids are getting older, or they're babies, or whenever you had your trauma, you see your kids growing up, they're reminding you or triggering you regarding your own unchecked trauma. And that causes an instant, I don't want to be a part of this, because I have to work or I have to do this or that, so we have so many issues in our society today that we just don't talk about, we don't deal with. We talk about Black communities, communities that are underserved. We talk about under-resourced communities, communities where, there's a lot of absent parents or oversight in the home. And so, but kids don't have after school programs. They don't have places to go to. All of those are vulnerabilities. So that's why a person can't say, my kids, will never be trafficked. You can't say that, because our world is ever evolving in this, where we're disconnecting, that heart to heart connection. And that's all kids want. and
Yeah.
trafficker can make it feel like this is a heart-to-heart connection. When my trafficker, when I was met my trafficker, you know, he was you know, a guy, a blind date, and he said to me, and I always say, he said to me something no one else ever said to me. After I told him I was sexually abused from the time I was 7 to 14, and all the other abusive experiences I had, he said to me, "I'm sorry that happened to you."
Wow.
That was it. I was in love, because that's what love feels like.
Wow.
He
You were
knew it.
thirsty for that. You were
Yeah.
thirsty just to hear that one thing you never got. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Christina.
What?
It's powerful because it's so interesting. I feel like in some ways you're the micro and I'm the macro here, because you have such a personal, like internalized landscape, you know, and that's fascinating to hear, because yeah, you humanize it on such a personal level. It's beautiful. Yeah, it is that simple. People show up and exploit. Yeah. Those needs
Exactly.
they see in you. That's what being at risk means. You're in it.
Yes.
That's the groups that get attacked.
Yeah.
Somebody once said something really smart to me. I can't remember which anti-trafficker said this. He said, kids and women with healthy, involved families, this doesn't happen.
Right.
So if your family is involved and
Yeah.
connected and interested and curious and engaged in your success in the way that we want everyone to be with each other, which we all know we don't do it, but the way we were striving to, then it doesn't happen, because people are checking in on you and people are sensitive to your needs. And
oh my goodness,
and, you know, and another person said something that I thought was very powerful, is that in a healthy family, I was a therapist, in a healthy family, the children needs are the most important needs in the household.
That's right.
And if you're in an unhealthy one, it's the reverse.
It's not a priority. And we feel that.
That's when children's rights and young women's rights get exploited.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Just systemized abuse, period.
And you know what? I want to tell you another thing, even for families where we have identified kids as being trafficked, and they did have pretty healthy families, right? Where parents are very involved. It's just so happened because being young and on the internet is a vulnerability. And so, but it's beautiful. Also hurting. It hurts as well, because there are kids who are in this situation more than not, where they don't have families that are involved, right? But for the kids that do have parents that are interested in their well-being, the recovery is just beautiful. It's so beautiful to watch mom come around and dad come around and embrace them. And even though they've gone through this, we're not going to judge you. It's our fault, you know, or they're just, it's
the other thing
wonderful.
The other thing I found, because I found the structure: rescue, aftercare, prevention, and rehabilitation. I'm sorry, rescue, rehabilitation, prevention, and prosecution are the 4 areas we can attack human sex trafficking.
Yeah.
But prevention work in Southeast Asia, some of these children, these young women, come from country areas, rural areas, where they think if the daughter or the kid goes to the city, they're going to make the money for the family, and they don't really know what that involves. And the kids are too ashamed once they're in it to realize they've been tricked, or they've been seduced or groomed into a lifestyle, feeling the pressure for the family to make the money that they don't have, into a lifestyle that is destroying them.
Yeah.
So that it's ignorance, it's poverty, it's systemized abuse. It's the trauma in a region. Like right now, the Southeast Asia was traumatized in the 50s, 60s, and 70s from the Vietnam War. That was a war-torn area. So there's a lot of at-risk broken structures in the government. Now that region, which is one of our anti-trafficking groups, is now working in the Middle East, because I saw a wonderful documentary called Naturno it's an Italian doc. It should win, because I was told by my producer, don't include other regions, just focus on Southeast Asia. And I think he was right. That was overwhelming enough. But this movie deals with the Mideast and how, because one of our anti-traffickers was like, I really want to put in the movie that ISIS is using human sex trafficking of children and women to fund what they're doing. And I was like, I want to put it too, but it was out of topic. This whole documentary Natorno there's testimonies from children about the abuse they experienced when they were, captives of ISIS. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so, I mean, there's other docs that are doing it in different regions because trafficking looks different. It morphs like a snake. Culture, government, it changes shape. It has a different cultural, societal face. So,
and you know what, just on your point there, in here in the United States is different. I just wanted to add to your point that if you're in New York or Georgia or Texas or California or in the center of the United States, the culture of trafficking is different. Go ahead. I just wanted to add that so people would
absolutely true.
That.
And that's like, we went to Vietnam and I said, why are we going here? And she's like, I want to start working here. We did it undercover with her. She said, I get calls all the time from the border. Help us. We want to get out of, we've been trafficked into Vietnam, but it's a communist country, And she was talking to me about, we got her on camera talking about there's underground tunnels, and she believes that's how it's happening in and out of Vietnam. And I was like, oh, basically when I was editing, I was like, you know what, I'm going to leave out Vietnam because I can't. I have 2 countries that could possibly get mad at me. I'm not going to pull in Vietnam, but we didn't get that much evidence visually, ocularly, because it's going on behind the scenes. So in some countries like Cambodia, it's overt. In Thailand, United States, it lives and resides and moves in a different way. Vietnam, you can't see it really. It's not that obvious.
And then Christina, also with your film, I mean, there's the whole issue of some of these children not even having birth certificates. So you can't really even, you talk about the underground. I mean, it's hard to track, right? Like, how can you track the scope of a problem if a child doesn't even have a birth certificate? Well, they can't have a death certificate either, right? They don't exist.
They're off the grid. Where people might be afraid of being on the grid. Well, a lot of these people are like in such like kind of poverty, the education level, the ability to, I mean, that's a whole other problem with Cambodia. Ever since the Khmer Rouge came, they destroyed commerce. They destroyed money. There was no educational system. Everybody was put in the fields to work, I mean, in extreme fascist regimes and extreme communist regimes, that's the structure. So, they're not, these young people and families that are being born don't have the governmental protection. They don't have, one guy we interviewed, that guy, when we went to Poi Pet, he is the one social worker in all of Poi Pet. One. And he works for the Christian ministry NGO that I was following in the whole town. So they don't have any kind of governmental help to aid them or to guide them or to, they just don't have the assistance. So they're off the grid. Their kids are off the grid. They're uneducated. They're living in poverty. The government is not restoring. That's why so many NGOs from different countries come into these regions to help rebuild the country. And they just don't have the governmental structure in place yet.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that towards the end, the coordination and the systemic issues that are going on, and, whether it's through policy or the government or in lack of coordination. So, but I want to, I see these questions popping up from some of our audience. So what I'd like to do is move to the clips and play the clips from each of your films. And then I'm going to open up a couple of questions, but then from there, Carrie, I'd like to open it up to the audience because I see some questions coming through, and then we can all, I think Christina and Tanya, they've got some good stuff for you. So let me see if I can, bear with me 1 second. I'm going to try and share my screen again. We are going to first watch a clip from GROOMED, Tanya's film, and it's on the subject of grooming. So I'd like for us to just take a look at that, and then we're going to go right into a clip from Christina's film, and I'll maybe do a little small introduction before we show that one. Here we go. Oops. This is not how I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we go. All right, so this first one is from GROOMED. Let me know if you guys can hear this okay?
Maria, ano ginagawa mo dito?
Nothing.
Akin na yung cellphone mo. Kanino mo pinapadala yung mga litrato mo?
Mom, I said it was nothing, okay? Just leave me alone.
Ibigay mo sa akin yung cellphone mo. Ngayon na.
Mom, you don't know what you're talking about.
You think I'm stupid? You don't think I've heard of sexting?
Mom.
Give me the phone.
No. No, Mom!
Do you really think he wants you? 16 ka pa lang.
He loves me.
Give me a break. What do you know about love? Ilang taon na siya?
He's 30.
30? Saan mo nga siya nakilala? Answer me.
At the mall.
And you gave him your number? You disgusting little puta.
Oh, yeah? You're the one that brings guys in here all the time that are like total pit. I hate you.
Maria, wait!
Yeah, it feel good when I'm around you. You my queen, I'm gonna crown you. You stay there, that's why I want you. Shorty, trap it out and hold it down too. Shorty, you the one, yeah.
You got a light?
I don't smoke.
Too bad.
I gotta go.
Okay, so that is from GROOMED. Now we're going to go to a clip from Christina's film, The New Abolitionists. Uh-oh. Okay, let's try it again. Uh-oh. Let me try one other thing, guys. It looks like there's a technical issue. Let's try this. Can you share? Nope. Tanya, I don't know if you can talk while I'm trying to figure this out, but if you want to do that.
That would be nice, right? Instead of us all just watching you struggle through this.
Take it over. I'm handing it over.
Yes, not a problem. So I wanted to show that part of the film because, you know, as you can see the misunderstanding between Maria and her mom. And so, and also it was just so important to add a little backstory. So you see mom walking out the bedroom, you know, with her boyfriend who's younger than her, right? So, you know, it's like there's this unhealthy thing that's obviously been going on, right, in the home. And the home is, it's not like the greatest of homes, just kind of that situation where, mom's priority, like we talked about earlier, and Christina said, so beautifully about, these needs that, that needs to be met, where the kids' needs are the priority of the family, right? And so you can see that that's not happening here, as, she's just sitting in the kitchen and mom is doing her thing in the bedroom with her boyfriend, so you see, Maria wants attention. She wants the attention, just kind of sitting there. And so she's contemplating, already, wanting to run, wanting to be with this guy. She's had this interaction with him, and but I really want to be home with my mom. I really want this. So if you kind of think about it, hopefully you're seeing this dynamic between what's going on between her and her relationship with her mom. And with her mom having the trauma, you never know, because mom is sharing life in this way, or doing life in this way with her daughter. It would appear to me that mom has some issues that she hasn't been able to deal with. And so here's this opportunity that the trafficker has been waiting for, right? For things to just kind of blow up, which it did. And when I tell you this happens all the time, it's an understatement. Like, I'm dealing with this with a couple kids I'm working with, like at this moment, where there's this need for this love from mom, and mom just can't do it for so many reasons. And so she runs, and you see her running. And the other thing I wanted you to notice is, we put this into the movie because I really feel like this is important, is the culture. Our culture here, the music that she's listening to, the words, in this song is about, you're my queen. You're the one I've been looking for. You're the one, and another interesting caveat to this making of this film, we actually found someone who used to be a pimp a long time ago, and he's giving back to the community now, but happened to find him, from a friend and everything, and asked him if he would do some songs. And he was like, actually, I already have them. So he pulled up some old stuff, and oh my God, so having him a part of this was really beautiful. And for him to, to be able to help in this way. So the culture told her to go run to this man, right? Because she gets on the bus, she puts on her favorite song that reminds her about this new relationship where he is most likely calling her his girl, or his ride and die, or his queen, and she's going to go meet him. And then I wanted to take you up to the point where she's at this gas station and she's meeting the trafficker, but before she meets him, the trafficker had already sent out his bottom to go check her out. So that's who you see standing next to her, because I want people to understand that this is a lot of it, most of it is well thought out. It's not just, just so happened, although it seems like that, right? It seems like that to the victim, to the one that's being played. It seems like, this was a divine thing, this was a God thing, or this was supposed to happen. It seems like that, but when you're on the trafficker's side, they've done their research, they're doing their homework, and they have scouts, they have runners, they have people on the backside doing this as well.
Can I just think of quick, Tanya, that I'm thinking about, because there was a group of men in Thailand that were working with Johns, and it's so hard to feel sympathy for the other side, but how ugly and tragic is life, where even the traffickers, to literally be so parasitic that you live off of other people's weaknesses. I thought the movie Precious, even though I didn't want to see it, dealt with it so well. I think we can't get past our rage at it, but the reality is it's so broken and ugly. I mean, we talk about the low self-esteem of the victims, but how broken and do you have to be to the only way you feel you can survive is to exploit children and to live off them? I mean, that is so, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm listening to your story. thinking about it more than I've ever thought about it. Actually.
Yeah, it does, and it should make us angry. But the truth of the matter is that a couple of things. It's the world we live in. Traffickers aren't the only ones exploiting people, vulnerabilities.
That's
They're
also
not the
systemized misogyny is so deep. Like I learned from the movie about my own level. It's why I mentioned the whole thing about going cross country in the introduction. The movie changed me, and realizing how much of my life I was waiting for this man, like the white knight thing, and the princess has to be kissed to live this. In the back of our brain as women, it's our idea of success and identity, and we can't even sometimes distinguish if we're being used or loved.
Right, because we watch too much television, and TV has been our parents.
Well,
movies, Disney, all of that.
I think it even goes further back. I really do. I think it goes so deeply into our identity as women. Talk about fear of surviving and needing to be loved and wanted. And it's just really deep stuff in us as women. I've seen most of my friends go through abusive relationships with men that don't love them or using them. I mean, and I'm not saying it's just one sex, because it's done.
But Tanya, I really want to know what you have to say about TV. That was really interesting to me.
Oh, you mean so like shows that show like
I don't know, just wherever you're.
No, I mean, I just think that we put our kids in front of TV, right? Or the internet, and it because our minds are developing, right? We're using information just as like human beings, right? We get information and we eat it like the computer or whatever else, we consume it and we make up ideas about what the world should be. Like, for example, my mom grew up when there was lots of musicals, and she really thought life should be a musical. So when things happened, she didn't know how to deal with it unless there was a song about it. I mean, so it's just, and that was real to her in some ways, because life should be fun. So we begin to perform for others and ourselves. That's why we have so much unchecked trauma. We don't talk about our stuff that happens deeply, sexual abuse, rape. We just don't talk about those things because that's not a beautiful song.
Yeah, you can't.
That's not what our life should look like. And I believe that we get that because of what we watched, when entertainment came out. So and just like now, I say that, with, singers or, TikTok telling you what our next dance is, we're constantly looking outside of ourselves for how we should be inside. And that's not how we find it. It should come from inside out, but we're okay with letting media tell us how to think, how to live, how our emotions should be. Media controls the way we feel. And so if we want, to me, when kids talk and they're talking to me and their ideas are a lot like the songs that I'm hearing, like the song you heard Maria playing, I understand that that's how they view themselves in their life and how it should be. If something gives you a problem, do this. Instead of, and that's that disconnection we're talking about, where kids, and not just kids now, but myself and before me, we're looking for a way out of our situations because we feel like what's happening to me shouldn't be happening to me. Instead of teaching kids, no, this is life. Life has challenges. Go ahead.
Tanya, what's so crazy is that so I'm a professor at Stanford and a couple universities here in Nashville, and I have this one prompt that I give kids, but I give them to the fourth years, but then I also give it to the first years. And I was so struck by the fact that like the fourth years, I was asking them to talk about their childhood, and it was all about like going outside and just like being, and then all the first years were like, well, I was just in my room, like, just playing some sort of video game type thing. And it's so stark how quickly it kind of came away. And that
Yeah.
really resonates with me.
It can really, yeah, it can happen in all forms. And I think that's the interesting thing, right? Whether it's university kids or young kids, or our neighbor or a parent. I mean, really it's being more mindful, I think. And two, what I hear you guys saying is going back to the systemic issue of how does it start, whether it's through the family, the community, or, you know, wherever. We've got to deal with the authorities. There's a lot of different angles to this, which is one of the things that makes it so incredibly complex and heart-wrenching. I'm going to try this again, Christina. We're going to show the clip of your film. And after that, guys, because I think there's going to be a lot more comments and questions, I'm going to turn it over to you, Carrie, to kind of run through some of those, because a lot of folks may have questions for Christina and Tanya. So let's try this again. This is, let me just introduce, I'm not going to give this a huge introduction. It's going to speak for itself, you guys. This is a heart-wrenching clip. One of the things in watching Christina's film, I had to like pull away and cry for an hour. Some of the victims, you know, also are the most innocent of innocent, meaning they don't have their physical capabilities. And this is a clip that focuses on a young girl named Esther. Oh, where is it? Oh, good. Did you just stop that? Why is it not playing? Okay, guys, keep talking. I'll be there in a second. Can you guys see my screen?
Not right now.
Oh, no, really? I can't. Well, now I can't. You're right.
Can you see that?
We did really briefly, and then it went away.
I don't know why it's not working now. Let me just try.
Can you send it maybe to Carrie, and Carrie could share her screen?
Let me try that.
Now we see your screen, Heather.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Here we go, guys. This is the clip from the New Abolitionists. See a lot of this.
Horrible. I don't know that you ever get used to it. I don't know that you ever get used to seeing it. I don't know that you ever get to the point where you don't just weep inside over the atrocity. And I guess you just have to know that it starts with the one.
We had children that had some sort of an intellectual or physical handicap that didn't have safe families, and there was nowhere to put them. I talked with a number of individuals that said if you don't build it, it just doesn't exist. While working in an HIV community, this little girl was tucked underneath this house. When she came out, she had burn marks and scars all over her face and body, such darkness in her eyes, and I knew that she was in danger. Everybody in the community gathered and they began to tell me that she couldn't speak. We visited with her mother. She said she doesn't have a name. We just call her Fat. One of the team members had a vision that they were going to meet a little girl that wouldn't be able to speak and that she was supposed to be renamed, that she was actually supposed to be called Esther. I asked the mother if we could rename her, and we said, your new name is Esther. It was a miracle. She said out of her mouth, Esther, my name is Esther. And there was a corporate gasp from the community because everybody knew her as this little girl that had no voice.
Very good.
I came one day, there were two men that were in the house that came out. Esther came out without any clothes on. Her mom came out zipping up her pants. I said, what are you doing here? And they said, well, we're just here to play with her. We had a medical exam done on her. When I'm talking about scars and burn marks all over her face and body, I mean every area. This little girl had been through some of the most horrific acts of abuse and exploitation, and she's now free.
So very difficult clip to watch, and there are many in Christina's film. And by the way, I didn't mention, but her film will be premiering here in Virginia at the 2021 festival in May, which we're going to do some incredible things around. But, you know, the thing that struck me about this little girl is, and so many of the other victims in the film, I mean, they're innocent. These are people that are being taken advantage of in the most heinous of ways. And yet the powerful thing is the organizations came in, and you have a child who's mute, who's been severely abused and burned and sexually abused in every way. And they give her shelter. Tanya, as you said earlier, Christina, you too, they gave her a safe place, and then they gave her a new name. And the child is thriving now and free. Christina, do you want to touch on that a little bit? And then I'm going to turn it over to Carrie. Carrie, if you want to pick up the questions from the audience after that.
Well, I mean, there was a book I read before I went by Patricia King called For His Tears We Died, and it was individual accounts of different children that have been trafficked, and every story, it's one person who reaches out with love and changes that child's life. And I mean, children that are trafficked into labor rings in the fishing industry in Southeast Asia. I mean, the stories are horrific. They are literally taken into these boats, either sold or tricked, drugged, sexually abused, and literally gets to the point where some of them are just thrown into this, I mean, it's horrible to even talk about, just thrown into the sea. So you just go, the lack of respect for life besides the level of inhumanity is, I mean, this is why I did the documentary. You know, I'm sure this is why Tanya does what she does. This is why any anti-trafficker just starts getting like willing to give up everything to do something about it, because this kind of inhumanity and injustice is so rocking and disturbing. I mean, I made the movie and I've been dealing with this subject for 5 years, and I feel emotional because these little individual stories to children. I mean, if we're not gonna mobilize around protecting our children, who are we? You know?
And the other generations too, right? Like in both of your films, and we see this, you know, happen in these cases a lot. I mean, whether it's generational violence or abuse that's gone on for many generations, or, you know, mixed in with culture, or the issue of poverty and economic distress. On top of that, there's so many different issues that, you know, give way to these issues of exploitation with the most vulnerable, no matter what age they are, young or old, or their background. And then the fear of violence to stay in it. And so then the struggle of how do I get out of this lifestyle? And that's a whole different topic that we haven't even delved into yet. But Carrie, I'm going to turn it over to you to, because I know we have about 30 more minutes left, and I saw some great questions come through.
Sure. So I'll just ask these in the order they were asked, starting with the most recent. So this is for Christina, I believe. Can you talk about the law and what happened with traffickers?
The law and what happens with traffickers. That's different in each country. The law in Cambodia was different than the laws in Thailand. There was a bunch of laws passed in 2008 where I think the age of consent sexually for children is younger there. I could be wrong, but I also believe in Cambodia, prostitution is not illegal, but it is illegal to profit from the proceeds of prostitution. So what happened, because they realized so much trafficking had become so rife in the country, they came in and made it illegal. But then these, what they call karaoke bars, massage parlors, beer gardens opened up, which are used 3 different ways that people can actually create a business, and they call it the entertainment industry, which is crazy. And they provide girls, and the girls will, you know, it's in the movie, the kind of the details of how they get away with it, but they cover it, and they legally find loopholes out of it, so that the way that they profit is through a fee that needs to be paid to take the girls off the premises, if that makes sense, the children off the premises. Yeah.
Then another question for Christina. I'm assuming that the mother is not with Esther, correct?
Yeah, I believe not. Yes, I hope. No, absolutely, she's not. No, she's not fit. Clearly, yeah.
Okay. And then a question for Tanya. Great presentation. Can you tell us how you broke away from trafficking?
Actually, it was because of a law enforcement officer. He saw me. So if you look up Cox 11 in plain sight, I tell my like entire story on that. It's a 2-part series, but in just a short way, had a law enforcement officer that just saw me in distress and actually paid for my bus ticket out of the area I was to go back home. And although I went to my trafficker 2 times after that, it was really the beginning of me coming out of that situation. You know, he definitely empowered me at the right time. So it was a law enforcement officer.
Great. And then there's, going back in the chat, there's a message for Christina about someone wanting you to contact her after the program, so we can send you that information.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that all right? Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted you guys to know, my name is Christina, and I'm actually looking for a career in anti-trafficking. I have put my life, just my full dedication, my full focus. I really want to do something about this horrendous problem that's going on in the world. I just wanted to know, because you women are kind of already in this career path, do you have, for someone like me who is actually just starting a career as this, I've considered like doing social work, getting a degree in social work, or joining an organization, working overseas. Just like, what would you recommend? What are the career paths for someone who would want to work in prevention, or someone who would want to work directly with victims, stabilizing them? If any of you just have any kind of like career path direction advice.
Well, I can say something. Do you have another a talent or gifting outside of that you could bring? I mean, there's a few. I actually wrote this down for this because I get this question a lot. What can I do? You can start. I have a friend who started her own business where the proceeds of the money, part of the proceeds went to anti-trafficking work. If you look at the anti-trafficking groups that I feature in the film, they all these NGOs start businesses. Nightlight started a jewelry business, and they employ women to make jewelry. Tamar created a card business, Extreme Love. So you could be entrepreneurial if that's one of your skill sets. Another thing is what you just said, to attach yourself to one of these organizations and just volunteer and get involved, you know, in terms of in an open way to where they need help. Or if you have other services that you're good at. For me, as an actress, I teach acting. That's something I can bring to the table, working to rehabilitate young people and give them skills and give them, you know, identity and sense of self, and strengthen them. That's my area that the expertise I can bring to the table. So those are the 2 things off the bat that I could think of. That makes sense.
Sure. Thank you, Christina. Well, specifically, I'll just ask a final question. Just very specifically, I just wanted to know, like, As an anti-trafficker, what is a specific like career path that you would recommend, or so that you can actually like work with victims and help them? Like, would that be the journey of a social worker, or would that be the journey of like a human rights advocate? Like, what
All of
are
it. All of it. They need lawyers, they need teachers, they need psychiatrists, they need doctors, they need all these organizations kind of have interdisciplinary needs to help kind of come around victims and rehabilitate them in many ways. Social working is, they all employ social workers, but they also have, in terms of preventative work, they have different people will come to work with these different organizations and go into the families as prevention work to teach them skills and tools, to educate them, so they get rid of what Annie and Nightlight International calls in my film the push factors, which is lack of education or lack of, you know, any kind of financial ability to support the family, which pushes the kids out into this. So that's another avenue. One guy in the movie started a business with the organization, but he had already established one. So I think that goes back to where your heart and mind and you know, talents lie already. And that's the end of my.
That's great, great stuff. And Tanya, I know you have some stuff to add as well between.
Yeah, I you know, like to, you know, tell people as a person who works, and of course my work is here domestically, and I just, you know, and so this is a big topic for me, because the reason why I am so bold about it, or not just so bold, but, you know, really come out, because there are so many kids that like I'm working with right now that, you know, I would love to see the love and support domestically that we see internationally. I would love to see that. I have, you know, a lot of times we have to send kids, not a lot of times, most of the time we're sending kids to detention centers, behavioral health, and these aren't, you know, great um, agencies for them to like learn skills, or where they're being loved and celebrated and given a name, you know? And so that because it's just, it's kind of like weird. And I understand that, you know, I think that sometimes people look too far out, because here at home, you know, maybe even in your life, when you think about it, things here at home are a little difficult, right? So, you know, maybe that's it. It feels easier to do, uh, you know, to do something outside, or to do something, you know, in another country. It's just, you know, laws are, you know, different, I guess. You know, I don't know, but what I like to tell people here, if you're going to do something here domestically, um, locally, because there are things to do in your own neighborhood, right? So even though you may have your ideas that you want to, you know, you see these programs and you want to jump on this and jump on that, it's really great to connect with uh, organizations locally and ask them what the needs are, because we have a lot of people starting nonprofits or doing things, and there's just money sitting there because survivors here domestically aren't ready for those. We're not, you know, we're not ready to go out and start working. I'm sorry. There's so much healing and so many mental health issues, and just, you know, you know, there's so many small things that, you know, we didn't get as maybe children or teenagers, just like how to respond, you know, just etiquette, just so like so many small things, you know. And I think if you're really passionate and you want it to go far, and your heart is really in this, and you know what it takes because you've healed your own self or your own soul, you've walked through some places in your own life, and you know what that's like, then you understand what it's like for a survivor of this, you know, 100 times, you know. So that would be my, you know, advice, is to look locally and ask, you know, what can I do? What do you still need? What are the gaps? Find out what the gaps are, but please don't go out and do what everyone else is doing. You know, be creative, because here domestically, we don't have that. It's heart-wrenching to not have places to put these kids. It really is.
And I just want
Yeah.
to add to that from my end. you know, one of the things, and we're probably not going to have time to go into this as we wanted to, Girls Blood, about coordination among all different channels, right? And something that one of the beautiful things, I've been in the entertainment industry all of my life since I was a very young girl, but my master's is actually in political science. I was sharing this with Christina and Tanya. Most people were like, how in the world do you put those two things together? For me, starting the film festival, and I've got other companies too, it was a way for me to actually blend a lot of different fields and industries and create coordination, just like we're doing here right now, that might not otherwise be done. And so if we all think outside of the box, and, you know, not just in one organization, but 4 organizations plus, you know, the government plus the universities, and try and create platforms for collaboration and dialogue and coordination, better coordination. That's something I'm very passionate about. And I think personally we need more of, you know, right now in our day and age, certainly in the US and other countries.
Absolutely. I think all of that is so well said. Tanya, there was another question actually from me. Since you were incorporating elements of your own story into the making of Groomed, did you experience any re-traumatization during the making of the film, or was it cathartic in any way, or both, or neither?
No, because I was passionate about getting this message across, I had to definitely make a choice to walk through it again. And I also felt very deeply for the actors themselves, right? Because they had to really be transparent and vulnerable about their own ideas of what they thought trafficking was at the time, and watching them transition and really getting into it hurt me because I didn't want them to go through pain, right? That was hard. And so watching them go through pain reminded me of my own pain in a more deeper way. But it was also very healing because we got to talk through it and be there for each other. And I actually got to just go deeper in my own pain and bring things out that I don't think any other opportunity, you know, would have brought out for me, because I've gone through therapy a lot. Trust me when I say that. But this was different. But I was ready for it. It was the perfect timing, and it was beautiful. But yes, it was re-traumatizing, but it ended up unflowering. And when I watch it, by the way, my daughter wrote and arranged and sang the song that you hear in the beginning. And that's so powerful. She is an amazing individual, and she spent time with me. I do survivor leader retreats. And she was a volunteer one time, and she left that survivor leadership retreat in tears, but changed. And that song that she wrote came from that experience where she saw that I'm no different than you, you know, and it was just really beautiful. So yeah, very healing.
Thank you for sharing that. Also a couple questions for both of you of if your movies are still screening and where people can watch them in their entirety.
We're doing the festival circuit, so we're trying to get it sold, but you know, you have to do the festival circuit. So we will see. Hopefully we'll get onto a streaming network. Because of COVID, the theaters, there's not a lot of like sales into theaters. It's all online. So look out for the New Abolitionists. Check out our website, www.thenewabolitionistdoc.com. We'll inform you if we make a sale, where we're going to be seen, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the same title. I think the New Abolitionists. I don't think maybe you'll see one other conflicting organization, but yeah, we'll give updates.
And then Tanya, has yours gotten, it's not gotten distribution, or is it available for people to watch?
Not yet. It hung out in the Philippines for a while, a couple of years. So we're just getting it back and hadn't decided how we're going to roll it out. But we're going to do it really soon. And so this is actually my first time on a platform like this, like doing what I've imagined doing. So thank you so much for doing this, Heather and Faye, and Faye's team. This means a lot for me. So
awesome.
Hi, everybody. This is Faye. I just have a question for Christina and Tanya. You know, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, right? And I would love to have a screening of your films next year at our next symposium, Symposium 2022, and have it screened at VCU with our beautiful auditorium at the School of Medicine. So I'm inviting both of you for January 2022.
I say yes, I'll do it.
Yes.
I think we would be able to do this in person because, you know, COVID will be gone by then.
We'll all be vaccinated by then.
Hey, we could do a fundraiser. We could have a silent auction. We could do it up.
Yeah, we could have a gala. We could, you know, the lobby is beautiful.
It's beautiful. It really is.
The lobby is just beautiful.
Yes, I say yes to anything Faye does because she's that amazing.
Yeah, and so we will send you the dates probably next month when we can do this.
Awesome, awesome. I'm in. I'll do it.
Okay.
The students can come back from their internships. That'll be great.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of very interested potential viewers on this call. So we'll stay tuned for when all that's happening.
Yeah, and to those who are out of state, my goodness, we have people from Buffalo, Manchester, UK, Hartford, Connecticut, Buffalo. But anyway, come to Richmond. Richmond is the coolest city. You just have to come and feel the vibe and spend a couple of days here. You will love it.
Agreed. Okay, so we have another anonymous question from the chat. Do you feel like you were able to get to, this is for Christina, do you feel like you were able to get to the source of trafficking with the restriction on the distribution of the documentary?
Sorry, I'm kind of confused by the question. Say it again.
The question is, do you feel like you're able to get to the source of trafficking with the restriction on distribution of the documentary?
I think Christina, what they're referring to is your earlier you were talking about, geo-blocking,
Well, I feel like, I don't feel like this issue is just connected to Southeast Asia. So if that region is too dangerous because of the corruption levels right now for the people there to see it at this moment, I don't see that the purpose of the film has been lost. I see it as a global issue, raising awareness, getting people activated in whatever way, shape, or form they can be activated, be it sponsoring a child, a family, be it offering their services like Tanya was talking about, be it local, be it in another country. I don't posit to know where God is going to take any of us in the direction of the decisions we make. But I did feel like myself, the movie helps educate and kind of clarify individually what the problem is and starts getting the mind working for each individual about. Somebody once said to me, a great teacher takes you to the threshold of your own mind. So I hope the movie does that. I hope it takes you to yourself to go, what can I do? Where can I go? So I see the movie having a deeper purpose than just the region.
Great, thank you. It looks like those are all the questions in the chat. There's also some more information. There is a question about, for Tanya, if you belong to the Freedom Network USA mentors.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'm looking for my daughter's song. I'm like, where is it? I have it downloaded for me, but like, yeah, people are asking for it. But Freedom Network. Oh yes, I'm not a mentor with them if that's what they're specifically asking. No, but I do work with Freedom Network.
And there's actually, oh, Dr. Rigby, did you have something?
No.
Okay. There's another question about how and why the traffickers, so Tanya, you're trafficker, or I think Christina, just traffickers in general, if you're aware, how did they leave their criminal operation, or if they're still involved, I guess?
From my perspective, we really wanted to interview traffickers and Johns, and it was very difficult. I've seen other documentaries with dealing with the criminal industry where they get them on camera, but that was not possible. So I wouldn't be able to answer about that.
I actually asked the question. So Tanya, the ex-pimp that was an advisor for the film, how did he turn his life around?
So now he opened up a studio, and he actually lives here in Virginia, but he was a pimp in Florida. But he opened up a studio and makes it available for kids to come and do things, or just really put himself in the community to just give back in that way. And so he definitely sees things differently than how he used to, and it's just good to it was just really great having him understand, especially with the culture, the pimping and hoeing culture, right? For him understanding that that's not okay, whereas before it's a lifestyle, it's a culture. So
Did he share with you whether there was a moment that changed his mind?
He just, when he was there, he just realized it was not okay, with the girls getting locked up, and there it's just he knew that he had to get out of it. It just too much was happening, and he started to realize that this isn't okay, even though we understand that, especially, I mean, just as a Black culture, right? For us, it's like, it's so normalized. And so to have a Black man to admit, while he's doing it, he had this awakening, like, no, this isn't okay. And then to get out of it, that's huge. That's big. So.
Well, you guys, this has been incredible. We could probably dive into 10 more subjects from here if we had all night. So I think what I would love to do is just end on a note of first just saying this. We thrive on coming together, these kinds of platforms. So thank you, Faye, VCU, the School of Medicine. From the film festival's perspective, I can say, film is a powerful medium, as Christina and Tanya know, and myself very well, to create awareness. But it's also about being a springboard for new relationships. So I would love to end our last 5 minutes on one question that I'll kind of put out there. And whoever wants to chime in from our participants or speakers, please do. We have like 5 minutes left, and we'll end on a touch of hope. And the question is, where does our future hope lie? Where can we take things from here beyond this symposium together?
I mean, I have no idea.
Supposed to be the expert.
Well,
I mean, the question is, I mean, that's like big. That's like from here to Saturn and back. I mean, anything. No, but your question is, how can we together as a film community,
just anybody, where is our future hope lie going forward right now?
I can say what I think. I'll say what I think. Well, Tanya, you go first.
No, I want to hear what you think, because
I'm a big one. The thing that helped me, I'm talking as a woman dealing with such small levels of trauma compared to people who've been trapped. Break the structure. Break the structure of your life where you're not happy, where you feel hemmed in, where you feel limited, where you feel philosophically bound. Break the structure. And if you want to be a part of change, you have to change that part of you to figure out how you can be a part of that change.
Love it.
Absolutely. Well, I say that all the time. So I'm like, oh, let's
where is she on the road, Todd? Oh boy, it's crazy.
Yes. Well, I mean, honestly, we need to have conversations about things we're not talking about. That's what I think.
That's interesting. Yeah, the deeper personal stuff that leads to the vulnerability you're talking about. Because I think some of the stuff you said, I never chimed in to say this, but there is so much denial in just the average normal world for women and families. And I think to look at this issue, that it's the extreme of it and not want to acknowledge our contribution on a daily level. I have a friend who saw the movie and she's now become liberated from an abusive husband who is starting to abuse the kids, and she's changed her whole paradigm. And to me, the movie worked for her. No, she's not involved in an organization, but she's freed from a structure that was eventually moving towards destroying her kids. So the movie worked for her that way, So you don't know how it's going to work in people's lives.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And there's
awesome.
And there's even simple things like donating to Impact Virginia so Faye can do this amazing work that she's continuing to do. Donating to things like Letitia's House, which is a human trafficking survivors thing. So even if you just start with baby steps, if you get involved with Faye, you'll be doing a lot more.
Yeah, but you'll be having a lot of fun working with us. Yeah, so anybody who wants to help me launch this screening in January of 2022, please contact me. I will put my email in the chat box right now.
Can you have the chat messages? Sometimes when I've done this, they have them, forgive me, I'm lacking the words, saved so that we can download them, or do they automatically go to like a saved thing so everybody here can, there's a number I missed or a question I missed?
I think Carrie, you're recording all of this and tracking those, right?
I'm recording it and then I can also save the chat.
Okay, great. That's what I was trying to.
Yeah, and I to answer your question, Heather, I would say that I think as future healthcare providers, in just a couple of months, many of the people on this call will be doctors, and I think a big thing is to listen to people like Tanya, listen to the people in front of you, hear what they're saying, let go of the things that you think are the truth, and actually confront what's being told by the patients that you're trying to help.
Yeah, I love that.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's breaking the structure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that phrase, breaking the structure. I'm going to steal that, Christina.
That's amazing.
It's actually Tanya's news, so we can trademark it and share it.
Yeah.
And get the benefit and give any profits go to anti-trafficking. There you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, this right here, you see how we're having a conversation that's out of the box, right? So you see how we're doing that, but I truly believe, because we're all intelligent in some way, we all hold certain spaces, but my idea or Christina's idea, it just like puts you on a space, or like puts you on a place where you can have another idea, and it continues to grow and it continues to grow, like, and so let them grow. Like, don't ignore some of the things that you're thinking, like, and sometimes we do that. We go along with, we question things, but we go along with it. No.
The best
if you're
is yet to be
questioning something, then question it. It's okay. So keep having these ideas and like go for it.
But as I said before, and I really deeply believe this, my journey to making the movie, was very personal with finding what mattered to me right now, honestly, in my life. Not teaching acting because I know it, I could do it and I'm of service, or trying to focus on getting the next acting job. It was, wait a minute, I finally have the money and the moment and the time to say, what brings me joy? What brings me purpose? What moves me deeply? Even though I don't know what that's going to totally look like, launching off onto that journey. And I think everybody wants to get in anti-trafficking work. They have to kind of go through that process, right? Just like Tanya, you're working with children now. That's, you're the Shiro in that scenario, but you went through the experience and now you found your way how to contribute and give back.
Right.
Yeah. That's a journey that you went through.
It is a journey. Yes.
And kudos to all the participants too. I mean, knowing that you guys are future doctors, and you're here and a part of this important discussion it means a lot to all of us. I'm sure I'm speaking for Christina and Tanya on that. And then I invite you guys to, definitely come out to the film festival in May. It'll be, assuming that the pandemic allows it to be in person this year. That's what we're planning on as of now, but it's May 4th through the 9th. And we do, outside of 100 plus features, all from 25 different countries, and have all the bells and whistles, we also do symposiums on immigration, human trafficking, on justice reform. We have special guest speakers from, sheriffs to people on the ground working in our nonprofits across the state, to the Commonwealth attorney, a lot of different people where, we create platforms for all of us to really come together like we're doing now and have more discussion like this. So I invite everybody out to that as well. You can check out more information at rbafilmfestival.com on that. And then Christina's film should be premiering actually here. Not to say it can't do VCU next year, of course, but there's lots of different topics that we need to, and conversations around these films. So thank you guys. Faye, incredible job. I think you have one more day of
2 more
things if you want to share, although I imagine everybody knows.
We will, Ben, the medical student, has just some closing remarks, but I wanted to say thank you. Ladies, I love you. Let's keep in touch. Let's keep talking about the hard questions. And it can only be possible if we have relationship and maintain our relationships, because everything begins in relationship.
Absolutely.
So let's move forward. So Ben, thank you, ladies. So Ben, do you want to, there you go.
This is just our evaluation survey for this session and for the whole symposium. It was designed to be done after the entire symposium. So whenever your last day is, it would be wonderful if you could take this survey. But you can also use this survey to provide direct feedback about this session as well. Once again, thank you, Tanya, Christina, and Heather for being here, and thank you to all of our participants as well.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Great job. Love you.
Love you guys.
The more information we get from the survey, the more the med school will help support us to keep going. So anyone who can do it, we very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for what you're doing. I hope that the rest of the symposium is a wonderful success. Tanya and Christina, thank you guys again.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor and it's a privilege. Thank you. Truly.
And you can go to impactvirginia.org if you want to see what's on tap for the next 2 days. Very exciting stuff.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay. And for the students, I'll try and get our Zoom meeting up and going. I may have to leave it a little prematurely, but I'll get it up and going for you guys.